Hey everyone, today we're diving deep with Patrick Skinner to build an Arweave app from scratch in just 60 minutes. Get ready for rapid fire coding, insider tips, and a live demo that will transform your blockchain game. Let's go. I was just talking with Patrick a little bit before this about IPFS versus Arweave, and I was asking, have you always been using Arweave or did you have a history using IPFS as well? What's been your story coming onto Arweave?
Yeah, so it all started at one of my very first hackathons in the Web3 space. This back in like late 2021, early 2022, something like that. And I was in Developer DAO. We used to do a ton of hackathons internally and externally. And I had this data storage component that I wanted for this hackathon project, but I just like I've heard so many horror stories with like IPFS, especially around the NFT space because NFTs were like popping at that time, and I wanted to come up with a better or an easier solution. And just so happens that the lead dev rel at that time for the Arweave ecosystem was in Developer DAO and a good friend of mine. And he kind of walked me through of like how I would do that in Arweave. It was ridiculously easy. And the fact that like I like to look at Arweave as such an easy gateway to Web3 for Web2 engineers or just people just unaware of how to get into Web3, because you don't need to know Solidity. You don't need to learn Rust or any like new languages or anything like that. You can get into Arweave and just start, right away using, JavaScript, TypeScript, or anything like that. And I think you could have a fully decentralized application with just JavaScript, and so it's kind of a nice entry point, I think, for Web3. And then when you want to get into doing like the more deeper fintech stuff of like writing Solidity contracts or Solana contracts in Rust or anything like that, you can learn those languages, but to really stand up something and like truly store something in a decentralized way, Arweave is definitely the way to go, and it's very easy to do.
Let's get started building on the permaweb. Can you share your
Yeah.
screen and help us see how we can start with nothing and get to your vision of the Arweave app? I built one of these a couple weeks ago, and the entire
Mhm.
Arweave community jumped into the live stream and was like commenting and helping me out. And I feel like I muddled my way through an Arweave app. But what
Mhm.
I'm excited in this video is to get a real canonical. Patrick Skinner is an Arweave expert. You were the one who gave me the documentation on Turbo that I used to build on top of Arweave. From my perspective, Turbo is the only thing I'm using. I'm already building it out in a bunch of different apps. So
Yeah.
really what I would just love is when you're starting a new Arweave project, let's open up like your terminal. And then what do you start with? Create next app. What would you do if you're getting started with a brand new project? And if you just like show us those steps, that would be super helpful.
Yeah, there's a couple really great mindset things to think about here because I don't jump to Next first, and I'll tell you why. Next is such an easy staple for people because there's so much great education and tutorials and like build this full stack, application, clone or anything like that on YouTube. So like Next is really, really well known for that. But unfortunately, here's a couple complaints I have with Next when it comes to building with the Arweave ecosystem. You have to remember that you want to try to build everything client side. And the reason why is because you can't handle dynamic routing when the front end of your application is deployed on Arweave. So there's no server-side actions that you can really run until you really learn to build your own, what I would say your server-side like actions using AO. And that's a whole different thing. I would probably have to fit that part into like another hour, but as far as like getting a really solid client-side application working on Arweave, I would start with a Vite React JavaScript application. And so let's go ahead and I'm actually going to pull up. Let's see here. Actually, let me pull up this new repo that I started, and I started a new starter kit and completed it last night. And it's called the Arweave 02 Arweave starter kit.
Yup.
And
There we go.
yeah, and it is awesome. I've really enjoyed it. Let me know if you ever have any issues or anything like that. But for those that are possibly like watching this or anything, it's 02 Arweave dash starter kit, and I had a lot of fun building this out. So let me just go ahead and just talk about the prerequisites first. Prerequisites are just like, you just have to have, Node.js 16. You need to, I do recommend using PNPM or Yarn. There's a weird caveat going on right now that I'm personally trying to fix with the Arweave wallet kit, that one of the dependencies does not work with npm. It works with only pnpm, yarn, or bun. And again, I'm working on trying to fix that right now, but I heavily recommend using one of these package managers. The Arweave ecosystem is really, really well known for using Yarn a lot. So if you want something that's really reliant and heavily tested in the Arweave ecosystem, Yarn is well known. Okay, and then the Arweave wallet. So my Arweave wallet that I always recommend is obviously Arconnect. So, but it's not called Arconnect anymore. It's called Wander.
Yeah, Wander.
Yeah. So I think if I go to, here we go. There we go. Wander, and the URL here is wander.app. And part of the reason I think for the rebranding, I can't speak for them, but the team is really, really solid. The team behind it is called Community Labs. They just released the mobile application over Token 2049 last year, so roughly in September. And they've rebranded to from Arconnect to Wander. And so far, my experience with Wander has been really, really good. But yeah, download this as an extension, and then just make sure that you use the proper browser. If I'm using Arc, which is basically kind of like a clone off of Chrome, so you'll use Chrome for that if you're using Arc as well. Okay, and going back over to our repo, which I think I accidentally here. There it is. Okay. And then for this starter kit, you'll also need an RAO or an RNS name, which you can get at the RNS app. And I can walk you guys through what that is really quick. An RNS name is essentially kind of like an ENS name in its own sense. You can use it as like a username for applications. You can send crypto to each other, using using an RNS name. But the biggest difference is you can easily deploy a website, a decentralized app, to the RNS name. So in this case, I actually have a couple of managed assets here, and I wanted to test deploying this this framework here, this starter kit, and it comes up right here. So if I type in like this testing 123.r.io, it comes up with this with the starter kit, which is perfect. It works really, really solid, really, really well. So now the other thing is you can own multiple RNS names, because obviously you're going to have like multiple, applications sometimes. You can also have what's called undernames, which is essentially just kind of like a subdomain in your own domain. So if you want to have, what I call like micro apps or anything like that within your, within your RNS as like a undername, it's very, very easy to set up. All you have to do is click on manage, and then you can have up to 10 undernames, and you just click manage, and you can create new undernames depending on what you want. So like this one says test one, but then you can create like test two or whatever you want. So it's actually really, really easy to manage your domains. You don't have to worry about your DNS records or anything like that. All of this is manageable right here. And so it's much easier to manage. The only thing you do need to learn to manage is your TTL. Stands for time to live, for anybody that doesn't know. And it's very, very common to see what time to live is on DNS, and so many people, they immediately put the lowest setting, which is fairly normal. It's not going to really break anything, but it's something to be aware of, that time to live. If you increase the time to live, it actually increases the indexing of your URL. And so it makes it faster and more searchable when you actually have a larger TTL in there. It does take longer for your website to go live if you have a larger TTL that first time for it to go live. But then once once it is live, it refreshes very well. It just increases the user experience overall. So what I do is if I want to test my application in its live setting, and just for testing purposes, I will have a very low TTL, which 900 is pretty low. It's like 15 minutes. Um, but then if I am ready for this to go live and I want to do a huge announcement of my application being live, then I'll increase this to roughly like a 24 hours. And that way I want to make sure that it's well indexed, easily searchable, best user experience. So just a little, caveat for people who want to learn, how to have the best experience with like domains in general, but as well as like RNS names. Any questions so far?
No, what I've got so far is we need Node.js. We need Node at least version 16. We need to use Yarn or PNPM. I've already got Wander installed, so that one makes sense to me. I've already got my Wander account, which used to be called RConnect. From inside of there, we'll export our wallet. I don't know if we'll go over that, but if you've used MetaMask or any other wallet app, exporting the wallet's a similar experience. It'll download a JSON. And after that, we want to set up an RName. I have some questions on how much does the registry cost, but I think.
Yeah. Let's see. Hold on. Oh, did I lose you? Oh, I think I lost you. Okay. All right. Your audio and visual just went out if you can hear me, but I'm gonna play along and keep running forward just in case the stream is still going. Let's see. Okay. I won't answer the question without him being here on cost, but I will just go ahead and just jump into the repo again. Let's see. I'm making sure it does look like, okay, everything is still live. Okay. All right. So going back to the starter kit, I'm actually going to jump into the starter kit here and go ahead and just explain a few things, from here. All right. Oh, you know what? I'll make my text a little bit bigger so it's a little easier. Okay. So, like I said, couple of caveats that we want to be aware of is we want to try to stay client side. Now, the downside of having a client side application is that you don't have server side actions, which makes it much harder if you want to have some sort of direct database that you're calling from. And but we can go over that on how you would actually build something like that using AO as your database. I think I hear you back.
Yeah, I'm back now. I'm sorry, my laptop died, but I'm glad you kept going.
Yeah. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to riff it.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Patrick.
No, you're good. I did withhold on answering the question about cost. The cost is similar experience to if you buy a domain anywhere else. The longer the domain name is, the cheaper it is. The shorter the domain name is, the more expensive. So obviously, if you're getting like a two-letter, like a two-letter ns.com thing, that's going to be a pretty expensive domain. But if you're getting something like, for me, my name's Patrick Skinner. So if I type in patrickskinner.com, it's going to be a pretty cheap domain. Now, how you actually purchase that domain is you're going to use what's called RIO tokens, which this token is going mainnet within a few days. But AO has gone mainnet, which the RIO token itself is built on AO. So you'll see a little bit of a transition here. But if I type in, let's say, Patrick Skinner.
You've already
actually
bought
own that one. Yeah, I already own that one. Here, let's see. Patrick A. Skinner. There we go. This one's going to cost me 4.83 thousand REO, and the T is just for like testnet, which that will go away very soon. And if you want to see where to get like REO tokens, you can go to like PermaSwap, launch the app, and let's say I want to swap for we actually have like, I think a US, yeah, here we go, like a wrapped USDC, and then I could type in RAO. So this will give you just a cost analysis of what that one costs, like 4830. This, I think is roughly, and this is, hopefully this will load for us. If it doesn't, then, I can probably guesstimate. It's roughly, I think right now, I think somewhere between the expansion of like $15 to $30. And now, provided that, with this cost, when you go to register it, it'll ask you if you want to register it or lease it, where you're leasing it for like 1 to 5 years. That's the typical span, or if you want to lease it permanently. So you'll see if I go to manage assets, I have a few of
Indefinite.
these that have, yeah, you have these expiration dates, and then I have one that's literally Patrick,
Oh,
and
you
that
got
one's
Patrick
indefinite.
Adams.
Yeah. I had to scoop that one up early. And
That's
now,
nice.
yeah. And then here's a really cool thing with this is this little star. If you just click this, this becomes your primary name, which is essentially like like an ENS address. So to show you how that actually works, let's head over to this this testing where the starter kit's actually deployed. If I connect my wallet here and log in, oop, if it wants to, there we go. Okay. You know what? I don't have it here, so I'm gonna actually pull this up in my local here. BNB run dev.
So the repo that you got there, all that you've done is you've cloned the repo. The repo that you posted on GitHub, I have added as a QR code in the top left. So if you're watching
Oh,
this video
beautiful.
on YouTube or Twitter, scan the QR code and you'll get to the GitHub repository that Mr. Skinner started with. If I'm
Yep.
understanding your current progress right, you've downloaded that on your local machine, and that's what you just ran pnpm run dev on.
Yep. Yeah. It's the exact starter kit, and you'll notice here it says primary name Patrick. So what that's doing is it's using a method that we have here in our repo, which I actually have a script here for if anyone just wants to test it in the terminal itself. The script is get primary name. And what it does is it gets the primary name of the person that's currently logged in. Okay. And if you want to see where to like learn a little bit more about that in like documentation, you can go to docs.rr.io and you can just go to the search and just type in get primary name. Okay. All right. So then from here, this really kind of breaks down very easily how to use the primary name method. This is cool because it encourages everybody to like have their own decentralized username essentially that works from one app to the next. So you have the exact same username that goes from app to app. And this is a great kind of user experience, especially since we're starting to see more games being developed in the Arweave ecosystem that you can have like a consistent, username experience from, one app to the next. And then eventually you're going to start seeing things like data backpacks where, you can have like achievements that go from like, that jump from like one game experience to the next. That's being worked on right now as well. Okay, so instead of jumping around so much, I just wanted to kind of, break down some of the easy things here. Going back to the repo. Okay, let's head down to the README file. Okay, so from the README file here, we have, we're using the Arweave wallet kit, which is built by the Community Labs team. And that's that wallet experience that you see at the top left here. Let's see. Here we are. So that's that wallet experience that you see right here. Really easy setup. If you want to see where to actually, read the documentation or anything on that, you can go to, let's see, here we are. It's wallet Arweave kit. So that's Arweave kit, docs.arweavekit.com. And then you'll come down to Arweave wallet kit, and then you'll just go through the introduction and the setup. Really, really easy. Again, a little caveat for anybody that is watching. I don't recommend using npm. This is where that pnpm part runs in. There's this weird thing that's happening right now with one of the packages, specifically with the Arweave wallet kit React, where it requires you to either use yarn, pnpm, or bun. Just so everybody knows, try not to use npm right now. I'm working on that. Hopefully I'll have it fixed in the next couple days. And then from there, we have the REO SDK, which is everything that has to do with your domain of your application, that primary name, so that like username experience. And then the Turbo SDK, which is what you've learned to use, is using the Turbo SDK for deployments. And so really, really solid, just 3 SDKs from the Arweave ecosystem so that you can deploy and manage your application in a decentralized way. Questions so far?
Okay, so for all file uploads, I should be using the Turbo SDK like I already am.
Mm-hmm.
The first package you shared was for connecting a wallet in the Ethereum ecosystem. That might be like a Rainbow Kit or a Privy or a Dynamic. The second one of the RIO SDK, that is for resolving names in the Arweave ecosystem, or was there a different use case for the RIO SDK?
Yeah. Resolving names in the Arweave ecosystem. But you also you're going to use the RIO SDK for setting your domain name, your decentralized domain name, RNS name, as the domain name for your application. Okay.
And that's so that when I deploy a file, I can then give it a human readable name so that it's easier for me to link it out to other places.
Exactly, because what you end up having is if let's I have this manifest here, and I have this ID. So if I go to this ID here, and I'm not 100% sure if this is a working ID, but because I was testing some things last night, but if I go to arweave.net/ and then put that hash there, yeah, so it's a broken link, but it's a deployed hash, okay. And it will typically go to this URL. And that's just not a very good user experience for a decentralized app. It's great to have a decentralized application, but if the user experience is really bad because they have to go to this really long hash and it seems kind of sketchy, and users kind of that if users see that long link and they're like, that looks really sketchy link, you're going to lose users from actually clicking on that link. But if you use this method called set record, which is right here for the RNS, we're using this script here in this starter kit that all you have to do is, after deploying your application, all you have to do is actually type in pnpm run RNS. So I can go down to the package here, and we have this RNS script. And what that's going to do is that's going to set your application as the domain that you have selected. It's really, really easy. And so going back to the documentation here, let's see. Go back to 0 to, here we are. Okay, so going back to the documentation, in the steps, we've cloned the repo, right? Okay, we install the packages by using pnpm or yarn. Okay, we run it just to make sure that it's working. The breakdown of the SDKs is, Arweave Wallet Kit handles wallet connections, provides React hooks for wallet states, and then manages wallet permissions. Okay. And then the RIO SDK manages the RIO name or the RNS name system, handles record updates, and then provides gateway integrations. Okay. And then the Turbo SDK provides the deployments and handles a manifest. I don't know, have you done anything with a manifest? Like if you deploy an application, do you have it so that it checks which files you've changed and which files you haven't changed? And if you haven't changed certain files or anything like that, that it'll just update the manifest and then only deploy the files that have been changed?
I have not used this type of file storage for hosting my apps. For all
Okay.
the apps that I run, I use Vercel hosting right now. So I have
Okay.
not had to think about manifests and which files are being changed. So far, it's just all automatic. When I push to GitHub, a build is triggered on Vercel and my apps are published. But I know it's not as permanent as what you're talking about here, actually building on the permaweb.
Yeah. So I can give you a tutorial later, but essentially what Vercel does is Vercel will check GitHub to see what specific files have changed, okay? And to save the deployment, the compute of required compute for deployment, Vercel doesn't redeploy the entire application every single time. It only just changes the files that were changed on GitHub. And that's just to save computation and everything. Because if you can imagine, some applications are huge,
Right.
and so if you had to redeploy the application every single time, that's a lot of compute, and it would be very costly to Vercel to be doing that, for free at least, and not very, just not a very efficient system for them. So they only deploy the files that have changed in the application. Well, we can do the same thing in Arweave as well, where we set up a manifest, and in this manifest, I'll show you right here, and it's in the starter kit already. So like the starter kit comes with this pre-built in, and so I'll go here, and we have this turbo deploy here. So this is the logic for a lot of the deployment, okay? But here, we're going to try to check if this manifest is available. And if if it's not available, it will create a new manifest, and then it will create hashes for every single file, because every file has to become a hash, right? And then those hashes become separate paths to separate files for each other. So if you are like, you click on any links or anything, you're just basically going to a new hash. Okay. And now, if it does have a manifest, it's just going to check to see what files have changed and what files have not changed. Okay. So it'll check to see, let's come down here. Okay, yeah. So it's going to check what files have been changed, and then it's going to go down here, and then it's going to only upload the files that have been changed. And so you'll see this file here, which is this manifest, which is basically just the files that are being used for this application. Now, you can see here like the vite.svg. That's this little image here.
Right.
That's here. Now, every time that I upload or I re-upload this application by hitting pm run deploy, every time I redeploy the application, instead of actually redeploying every single file here, this Vite this Vite image or anything, it's not going to change. It's not going to redeploy this image every single time. It's only going to redeploy the images that or the files that are consistently being changed. And
Now, is that on line 18 and on each of those lines, are those an Arweave hash? Like, can you just take that, put it into an Arweave scanner, and then you'll actually see that SVG? Or is this a different hash than the...
solid question. As a matter of fact, yes. So I'm going to copy this one, and I'm going to head over to here, and we're just type in arweave.net/hash, and there's that image. And so
Wow.
yeah.
Let me move the QR so that everybody can see it. One sec.
Yeah,
I see it. Okay, it's in the top left corner.
Go. Yep. And so there's that image right there. And okay, this is super sick. Okay, this is a great question. So if I have images, like this is such a pain point. Even if you just, let's say, man, I'm not ready to learn about like how to use AO as a backend. I'm going to continue to use Vercel, but I'm super like a huge pain point is having images disappear because like I forgot to pay for my Dropbox or whatever you're using to host your images, because images just tend to disappear, and then you have this website with like broken images. Arweave is an amazing place to actually fix that problem. And if you want to do that in a super low code, no code way, um, I love using just the R Drive application for this. So I literally did this last night. As a matter of fact, I go to R Drive and I log in using the same wallet. And this R Drive is very much like a decentralized, Dropbox in essence. And I'm going to log in here. It's going to sync my drives, and then I have this file called web images. Okay. So let's open up, and then I just have these like different pictures here that I've had like for websites or anything. I don't want to lose these images. And as you can see, this image here is the banner image on my repo. And so I can click on here for details and then see the data transaction ID. I can actually copy this and I can just go to arweave.net/ and there's my image.
Yep.
Okay. And so if you're using images inside of a repo, which I can go back to the README file, and at the very top, there's my URL, the arweave.net, and then the exact same hash. I don't want that.
The system is very consistent. Like you've got it in your manifest, you can see it on R Drive.
Yep.
It's very simple to get the resources that you need and use those and trust that they're just going to be there fast. Unlike what I see with IPFS, when images load slow, sometimes a gateway won't work on someone's phone versus someone else's. I've felt that the experience on Arweave is very clean, and it's like the Apple mentality of it. It just works. If I upload something, it's going to be fast. It'll be there forever, and I don't have to think about it again. I just use that image wherever I want.
Dude, you've nailed it, right on the head. And one of the best things too is like, let's say you're tired of having to look for the hash or anything or share the hash. It's an image or an asset that you share often. You can very well, use the exact same system of the RNS script here, where see this process ID. This process ID is the process ID for the RNS name. So let's say I wanted to make a specific image, just patrick.r.io, and it's just my it's just my profile image or something like that. And what I can do is I can actually take that hash that I've used here, this hash, and I can go down to here and see this transaction ID part here. Let's see, find TX. Okay, this transaction ID. Okay, I can swap out this transaction ID for that transaction ID. So then when I run pm run RNS, it will actually set the record, my RNS name, for that transaction ID. So then when I actually run, patrick.r.io, okay, it'll come up with that, with that image instead of anything else.
And that's
or whatever.
My image tags and everywhere else. I can then link directly to patrickskinner.r.io inside of my HTML code, and that'll work just fine as an image reference.
100%. Wow. So then another thing you could say is let's say we created, let's say you ended up buying the RNS name for like Sweetman Hot Album 1, like your first album drop, something like that, right. .r.io, and that could be just a series of links to like the 12 songs in this one album, or on top of that you could just say song 1 _. So instead of having like the dot as like the subdomain, we use the underscore. And so that underscore becomes the undername, in which, going back over to the RNS app. Let's go app. There we go. Names. Let's say I had albums, songs in the 0 to Arweave.
Yeah.
All I have to do is go to the manage, and then I can have 10 undernames, and you can get more undernames than 10 because you can click this button for increase undernames, and then there's a purchase for it. It's pretty cheap, like it's 0.9, which comes out to pennies. Yeah, and but like if I wanted to add 20 songs in here, it's pretty easy there. And it'll cost you 19. And again, I'm pretty sure that's down to pennies right now in cost. But if I wanted to go in here and I just want to add song 1, that's going to give me a new target ID and a new transaction ID. And that's it. And so I'll hit yes, hit that, and then it's going to ask me to, create the sign the transaction for that. Somehow I have no idea why I can't type in my password today, but yeah. And then there you go. So there's the undername for that one. And
you
then
can
there's my
reaccess that with
target
an
ID.
underscore, right? Instead of a dot, like a normal subdomain.
Yep. And so let's say there's actually a good example here in the testing one. If I go to the undernames here, there's an undername in here, I believe. In testing, oh, actually, no, not in testing. In which application was it that we have an undername for? Yeah, there it's in testing. Here, hold on. Here, go to manage. Okay, yeah, and then test 1. If I click this one, it has like a placeholder. There you go. And if you see the URL here, I'm going to zoom in a little bit for the people that can't see. It says testing underscore testing dash 1 2 3.
Perfect.
And so instead of the dot, it's an underscore. Yeah. And so like you can have separate songs or separate videos or separate assets or whatever as a subdomain within a domain.
I've got a musician, Violetta Zeroni, who has been asking about that. We've passed. We're at 36 minutes. We've got about 200 people who have tuned in live. I want to make sure you've got time to cover everything that you want before I start asking questions from musicians. In the next 20 minutes, are there specific topics you still haven't hit that we want to make sure we make time for, or have you already run through the zero?
Man, I feel like the zero to Arweave, I kind of ran through it. Some best practices. Okay, so I kind of covered it, but not too much. The Next.js, two reasons are there's a lot of server-side functionality that is there innately. And so you have to do a lot of configurations to get Next to work. But then here's the flip side of it. As soon as I type in, let's see, pm run build, okay, as soon as I build the application, if I do that on Next, it's actually a pretty large, application, just the framework, nothing else, just the framework. I think it comes out to roughly 3 megabytes, which gets costly, when you're doing redeployments and you're adding more features and things like that. It gets expensive pretty quickly. And, because we're storing, permanently, we have to be cognizant of the fact that things do get expensive very quickly with larger file sizes. So that's why I typically, out of the box, the easiest framework to use if you want to start from scratch is pnpm install Vite at latest. Okay, so Vite the Vite application is much cheaper, much smaller, and is all client side, right out of the box. Now, of course, you're going to have to add all these other configurations for RNS and for Turbo and the Arweave wallet kit. But if you're starting from scratch and you want to build an Arweave ecosystem, I highly recommend using Vite. And so, just to show where to start that at, it's if I could type in Vite and you want to read a little bit more about that, getting started here at vite.dev is the best starting point. You want to use probably Yarn or PNPM. Those are my recommendations. And then as you go through the questionnaire, it'll ask you, what language you want to program in, what do you want to name the application, and things like that. I typically recommend JavaScript. TypeScript adds a little bit of weight to it, but if you want to use type safety and everything, and you're really great with TypeScript, go for it. We have a lot of documentation around TypeScript as well, but JavaScript is, just fine for the application. And so that's why we're picking a Vite React app instead of a Next.js app. The next part is if you want to have multi-pages, which the Zero to Arweave application, the starter kit uses, is hash routing. So the hash routing feature, I'll go to the README. Hash routing is interesting because basically what hash routing is that you don't actually have like multiple pages or anything. Let me make sure. Are we still here?
Yeah, I'm still here. Still here listening.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. I want to make sure. It got real quiet for a second. Just want to make sure. But for the hash routing, all it does is instead of having multiple pages, which does make your application, a little bit bigger, hash routing will do is it actually uses hash routing to actually change the contents of a single page as you click through things. So you end up having this like dynamic experience for users having multiple pages, but in reality, it's just one static page. And so hash routing is really solid to use for the Arweave ecosystem as well.
Can you show me what that looks like on your deployed version? Like you say your deployed version has one of those hash redirects or hash routes?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'll show you exactly what that looks like. Go to the testing app here. Zero to Arweave. Oh no, actually, it's the other one here. Testing. Here we go. Okay, so like I have here, this is taking me to the dashboard page. So if I look here, this is actually the home page, actually. So if I actually disconnect here, okay, cool. And then I reconnect. Hit next, confirm. Man.
At least you're consistent about it.
Yeah, I know. Consistently wrong. Yeah. So now this takes me to the dashboard page, and I'm not seeing the hash here, but typically what it's going to look like, it's going to show me this hashtag, and then it'll say like dashboard here, and what that looks like inside of the application itself is we'll go here, and actually I think I have right now the hashing is in the nav bar. Here we go. Yeah. So like it'll change the end URL end of the URL here to like dashboard, and that's being gated. So like as I can see here, it says connected. If connected, it'll change the active page to dashboard. Okay. And so the hash routing setup, if I go to package, or actually coming up here, it's a very simple setup where I'm using the React. So I use React Router DOM, but inside React Router DOM, there is a hash routing feature. And you can read about that inside of the documentation for React Router DOM. React.
So it's a normal React routing feature. You don't have to use a special package. Everybody who's already building on React and React Router can use hash routing in their apps.
Yeah, 100%. It just it's a very clear and easy way to make sure that everything stays client side.
Copy.
Yeah. Another feature in here too that I didn't mention is that I don't know if anybody has noticed, but Tailwind just went through a big update. Their website's changed and everything like that. That's because they just recently released version 4. So this starter kit is completely configured so that it accommodates for the new version of Tailwind 4.0.6. And so a couple things that you'll see that are just noticeable differences is that you used to have like 3 imports here for Tailwind, but now you just have 1. And then in the Vite config, you'll see this thing here where you have a specific import for Vite now. Instead of like it used to be import Tailwind CSS from Tailwind CSS, but now there's a Vite config and there's a specific plugin. But that's it. That's all you need for the configuration for Tailwind now. And it works perfectly fine. And it works really smooth across the application. It's actually lighter now than before, so it's even more accommodating for Arweave.
Wow.
And yep. So that's it. the starter kit works right out of the box. If anybody runs into any problems or anything like that, feel free to ask me questions or anything, along the way. I'm very quick to respond to questions. So yeah, I think that kind of covers everything in the starter kit. You have any questions?
Yeah, I'd love to see a deploy. Can you make a change on your local version and then show us what it looks like to, okay, I made a change. I now want to publish that change, and then we actually can refresh your live page and see that change there?
Yeah, let's do this from like 0 to 100 really fast. So let's go to the actual starter kit here. 0 to Arweave. Oh, not that one. Here we go. Okay, so going through the steps here, I'm gonna clone this. Okay, and for proper development experience, I always have like a dev folder in the root of my project. That way I'm always consistently keeping all my repos in one place. Nothing gets moved, which, typically if you move something, it breaks a dependency. Okay. And I'm going to create a demo folder here. So I'm going to say Sweetman -demo. There we go. And then I'm going to open up my terminal. I love using Warp. That's my preferred terminal application. It's kind of like a terminal, but with like, autofill and like AI features and things like that for anybody that wants to use that. I really love this thing. So type in ls. Okay, so I need to CD back actually quite a bit here. And where am I? Okay, here we go. CD into RAO. ls, and then I see the Sweetman demo, so it's ls or cd into Sweetman demo. It's autocomplete there. And then ls. Okay, so there's nothing in here. Perfect. So let's type in the git clone. All right, that clones my repo. Autofill the cd into my repo, and then I just type in code period. Okay, so that opens up my new application here. Make it big so everybody can see. Open up my terminal.
Or are you using Cursor?
I'm using Cursor. I love Cursor. I've been seeing you use Cursor quite a bit, and I've got some tips for you on Cursor, by the way, too. I'll go into that in a second. Super fast stuff. But next thing you want to do is you just want to install everything by pnpmi. And okay, that's installed everything for me. I'm gonna just, I'll go through the process too of actually getting your wallet. So go through here, go to, oh, that's Phantom, wrong wallet.
I was like, wow, we can do Phantom too.
We're using Phantom, guys. My bad. And let's go to, oh, they moved the settings part here. Let's see, hold on. Yep. Okay. Yeah, they moved it a little bit. So this is new, learning as we go. There used to be a whole settings page we have to go to, but now we just export key file. You put in your password, export, if that's correct. Man, I am consistently wrong with this. This is awesome.
Oh no, is there an error with the button? You want to move it off screen so we don't see?
Let's see. Yeah, here, give me just a second. Might turn off that for a second. Just, I want to see if this is a wander issue or if it's actually most likely me. Let's see. Oh no, it's a wander issue. Okay, I can get that fixed later.
It's not letting you click the button.
Yeah. I just threw the error, but let me just check to see if, like, for some reason, like the emoticon thing. Oh, it has been downloading my file. It just hasn't shown the action. I'll tell the team, but it works.
Cool. Okay, at least it's working.
Okay. Cool. All right, so here, I'll reshare my screen again. Okay, and just so everybody knows, nobody freaks out, this is a demo folder. Nobody lose their mind. So if you do see part of the hash, not a big deal. Okay, so
sharing this tab. I'm looking at just the live stream right now.
Yep. I got to make sure I share the right screen here. Entire screen. There we go. My bad. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We can see it now.
We can see it now.
Okay, cool. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this key file here. So it says Arweave key file. Okay. Drag this, put this in the root of my project. So don't accidentally put this in any of the folders or anything. You want it in the root of your project. There you go. It shows part of the hash, not a big deal. It's a demo wallet. And then I'm actually going to rename this here. So I'm going to rename, and I'm going to rename it wallet.json because it's consistently going to work with wallet.json. Plus, you can see it grays out. And the reason why is the kit already has the git ignore to make sure that you don't accidentally push your keys to GitHub. Okay.
And this means I don't need to go in base 64 in code. When I did my 0 to Arweave last time, someone recommended I usually base 64 in code, and that's what I did. That way I could put it in an env variable. But it sounds like in your architecture, you're able to deploy without using an env variable, just using the native wallet export without modifying it or throwing it into some web app converter that.
Yeah. So the typical reason for that is Tom, who is the CTO for Ford Research, he created a repo called Perma Web Deploy. Here it is. Yeah, Perma Web Deploy. And in his repo, it requires you to have it encoded in base 64. So you see right here, base 64. Okay. So if you're using the CLI for deployment, you do have to have it base 64, but it's actually not required in order to run deployments with Turbo. Just so you know, it's actually an unnecessary step. The reason why he does it though is he has a Git hash in here. So like he actually uses a Git action, and in that Git action, he keeps a hash in there, and in that hash, every time he pushes the update to GitHub, it actually runs the Turbo deployment from GitHub, just like you were to have a similar experience really to Vercel. So like every time you push to Vercel, push to GitHub, it updates the live Vercel URL. Right. Well, with Perma Web Deploy, you're doing pretty much the same thing if you set up the Git hash action. So it's kind of that same experience. And on top of it, it's using a manifest file as well. So you're not redeploying your every single file every single time, and which gets costly over time.
Okay, so you've the repo, you've installed the packages, you exported your wallet key, you added the wallet key.
Yep. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we have to make sure that we build our application, PnP run. Is this the same? Is this the new application that we're using? Yes. Okay, yeah. Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure. Okay, PnP run build.
And we just got a comment from, well, earlier we got Ankush who just said GM with a waving emoji. Stephen C, follower of the Great Potato, just said it's annoying to set a key file to an env variable because you need to format it all on one line.
Yeah. It's in how I've written this script is so that you don't have to do like base 64 or anything like that. It's kind of a pain. Okay, and so we just built the application, and this is nice because it actually I like using PnP for this reason because it will spit out like the size of the build folder, and that's important to kind of have an eye on as I'm deploying things to Arweave, because if I see this being like, several megabytes worth, then I'm like, oh crap, that's pretty big. That's going to cost me a lot. And so it's kind of just, good practice to look at this number when you run the build, because you may have some like really large image files in there by accident, which you could downsize later to make sure that your build folder is not too big. Okay. Now I just want to run PnP run deploy. All right. Oh, see, I'm getting an error here. Interesting.
Is it because our mana? I'll shut up.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's a manifest. Yep. You're absolutely right. It's not. showing the manifest file. Let me just go ahead and generate a manifest file in here and see if that works.
Expected behavior was it would have auto-generated that when it saw that it didn't have it, right?
You're right. Yeah, that's the expected behavior. Let's go ahead and see if that works this time. Yeah, okay. So a workaround for that now, I'll fix this so that it does auto-generate it, but see how it generated my hashes and everything here?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So,
All
and
on its
here's
own. I was
my,
thinking, when you started mentioning hashes, I'm like, that sounds complex and like a lot I'm going to need to manage, but you didn't need, it did it on its own.
no, did it on its own. It's all built into the script here. So in this scripts, in the deployment script, I have it all built in here so that it runs all of your, oh, sorry, actually in your turbo script here, it will build out all of your scripts for you. And that's, what a lot of people think is, may be confusing at first, but don't worry, it's already pre-built for you.
Could we
Okay.
look at two things? Can we look at that URL and then to verify that the website's been deployed? And then could you show me where a good block scanner is so that I could take that transaction hash and see like a timestamp of when that transaction was included?
Yeah, so let's go ahead and just take this transaction here. Okay, and I can go to, let's see, we're going to go to the block explorer, and we're going to just use view block for this one. Post this. Interesting. That's not coming up. Let me take a look at the manifest here. I might be copying the wrong.
I've been trying to use the view block, and people told me that the reason that one's not working is it's waiting for finalization or something. And so it'll take 5 or 10 minutes after you did it for that view block to actually work. Is that accurate?
That's pretty accurate.
I think Steven sees the one who's saying, and he just commented again. He said, view block won't show for 15 to 30 minutes.
Yeah. And
is that just the case all the time with Arweave transactions? Like we get that deployment hash instantly, but if we actually want to verify the block, we have to wait 15 or 30 minutes in order to see that block?
That's very typical. Another way to replicate that experience is like when you actually go to the R drive, you'll see a visual cue for this, where if I come here and man, I am 20 for 20 at this point, something like that. But let's say I go in here and then I just want to add in a file, and I'm going to add in my profile image here. I hit open, it's preparing for upload, and then I hit upload. So that uploads the file really, really quick for me. Has the size and everything. See this yellow dot here? Right there.
Yes, I do see it. I see a green one above it, and the one you just uploaded is yellow.
Yep. So the yellow one means that it's still propagating the proper hash. And so if I actually go to here and go to the details and try to copy the transaction data, I'm kind of curious. It probably won't work, but sometimes it happens really quickly. Okay, so that one does work, but typically what you're going to have is you won't have like a working hash here, because that yellow means it's still propagating the proper hash, and so yeah, that's kind of the typical experience. Let's see.
Wow. And so you've just finished going. You cloned your repo locally. You installed the packages. You exported your wallet file, put that wallet file in and renamed it. I think you built then you deployed, and after you deployed, we now have a hash. Our website's hosted permanently. And you started that at, I think, 45 minutes. So it took you about 10 minutes to actually do that full process.
100%. Yeah, super quick.
And now can you make a small change and push that change so we can see that the change is updated on your deployed site?
Yeah,
like
let me
a text change on your homepage text or something.
Yeah, here we go. So first off, let's go ahead and just type in pnpn run dev, and just so we can just see what change we're going to be making here. And I'm going to take, okay, so I have here, let's go ahead and build out really quick, because we do love cursor. So I'm going to say here components. I'm going to say let's create a new component page called the profile page that only shows the primary name the same way that the nav bar. So like when I associate files or I'm referencing files, I always use the @ sign and type in the name here. I'm not sure if that's something you do, but it's super helpful so that I'm always referencing a specific, code or a specific file.
I love the tagging. The only question I have is, do you always use the chat tab, or have you ever tried the composer tab in agent mode?
I love Composer, but because I want to make sure that the context that's being used consistently is correct, I do use chat if I feel like it's going to hallucinate. Now, for streaming too, I use chat just because I want to be able to like explain exactly what it did and make sure that it did what it's intended to. Yep, and then shows the primary name the same way that the navbar does. Let's call this profile.jsx and then and add it to the components folder. There we go. And then I'll just hit enter. That's going to create that profile file for me. Now in Composer, it would automatically create the file for me, but I'm going to actually have to manually do it in this case. There we go. And then now I can hit apply as soon as it's done. Here we go. Let's hit apply. There we go. And let me make this a little bit smaller so I can read this myself, make sure. Okay, so it's using the wallet feature in here for me. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so this file is working. I'm gonna hit accept. One thing it didn't do though, let's update the nav bar so that there is a button for me to route my users to the profile page. There we go. Make sure we're consistently using hash routing from the nav bar to other pages. There we go. All right, that's going to update my nav bar for me. Let's take a look. Perfect. And yeah, all right, so that's got my hash routing set up. Now let's just go ahead and look at this at the local 5137.73. All right, now I have this profile button here. I can click on it. Let's see if it actually pulls up my profile. Let's see if it's actually doing that for me. Profile. And let's see if I'm getting an error here. Failed to fetch ANS. Let's see what could be the issue. Connect address, timer address, and maybe I need to just close the application to reopen it. PNP and run dev. Open it up. Hit profile. Interesting. Well, we made a small change. We can work on that later. The change is that we have an actual hash route. Yeah, right. we have a profile and an extra page. So let's go ahead and just redeploy this thing. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. So let's go ahead and go to terminal and pnpm. Something I kind of consistently do is make sure that we rebuild. You have to rebuild your application. Otherwise, when you redeploy, it doesn't know the changes because you haven't updated the build folder. Okay. All right. So rebuilt, pnpm run deploy. Okay. So take a look here. This is interesting. We have only changed 2 files here, okay? And if we go to the manifest, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then our main file path, okay? We have 7 different files, right? But we only changed 2. So this saves you a whole bunch when you're doing redeployments, because as you do redeployments, you're redeploying your entire file or your entire front end, and that gets costly as you are redeploying and testing things, right? But if you're using the manifest functionality in the Turbo.js here, and you're only redeploying the files that are getting changed, that saves you so much in cost when it comes to redeployments and testing and stuff on live on Arweave. Let's go ahead and open this up. Looks like it's not coming up. Oh, we're getting a MIME type error. I can fix that later. Let's see. No, so MIME types, for anybody that is unfamiliar, I go through a deep dive on what MIME types is in my 2-hour tutorial on how to build with the Turbo.js. I'm going to show you guys really fast where that is. It's on YouTube, and I'll show you guys. It's going to take me a little bit on fixing the MIME types because I can get a little annoying sometimes. I'll do an update on the repo itself to make sure that doesn't happen anymore. But let's go to Mario Patrick Skinner tutorial. Okay, here we go. And in this tutorial here, this is there we go. So this here is a 2-hour tutorial, deep dive on how to use the Turbo SDK. And I go over in depth what MIME types are. MIME types is generally making sure that your files are being properly recognized by all browser types. So you're really making sure you're identifying what files are what type of file, so that it's being recognized by all browser types. And so right now, what could be happening, and I'm kind of curious if it's just Arc. And I can go through here, and let's say I just type in, open up Safari. I'm just kind of curious if this comes up, if it works here. See, now so I'm gonna have to fix the MIME types here. It's basically because when I added this new file here, it's not being recognized by the browser type. And I'm gonna have to take some time to fix that in the actual starter kit. But I'll push a change to that in the next, honestly, an hour. It shouldn't take me too long to fix. But yeah, MIME types is kind of here's your MIME types import. That import is actually available from Node.js. And again, I go through like a deep dive on, what MIME types are and how to use them. But yeah, that's something that I'll fix later. And so, yeah, that's pretty much the starter kit. Now, there are other starter kits in the ecosystem. I won't go through a deep dive on too much, but a big shout out to the R-Link. Here we go. The R-Link team here has really put together a great set of starter kits. So if you go to rlink.arweave.net, or it could be r.io as well, you can actually run deployments very, very easily using their tooling, and it's really, really awesome setup. These guys have done a really, really great job of setting up a series of templates here. So there is a Next.js starter kit here that they basically stripped everything that is unnecessary for you to have when deploying to the Arweave ecosystem, and then put in all of the features that help a Next.js application work. Wow. So this is a starter kit. If you really love using Next.js, this is a starter kit for that. There's a React starter kit. They've got Gatsby. There's a blog. Rohit, I know him as Ropats. He's part of the Arweave India team. He put together an Arweave portfolio template, which is a great template in itself. But if you want to learn how to build a template from scratch, that 2-hour tutorial on YouTube that I did is 0 to 100 of building your own portfolio on Arweave. There's another portfolio starter kit here, and then there's a Polygon starter kit now. The lead DevRel from the Polygon DevRel team put together a starter kit for Polygon applications to be deployed on Arweave. The front end gets deployed, but it also supports their smart contracts.
Wow.
Yeah, so you can actually see this list, the R-Link templates, become a pretty long list of tutorials because of templates, because I'm working on putting together several different templates for like several different ecosystems, so that you can just hop over here and, like, let's say you're deploying music, over at Solana or anything else like that. You'll be able to run the front end and everything of that application on Arweave, but the smart contracts over at Polygon or Ethereum or wherever you want to run them at.
So we've deployed an app on Arweave now. I'm really happy with where we've gotten. It really only took you 10 minutes to do the full thing. The rest of this, you've been showing me other features in the Arweave ecosystem, which is just a testament to how easy and fast it is to build on Arweave. I'd love to, if you still have the time, I'd love to talk about three things. One,
go for it.
Musician Violetta Zeroni has questions about migrating from IPFS to Arweave. We've got a bunch of comments from Steven and Dylan Shade from the stream. So I want to bring those up and then get your closing thoughts on the stream. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can share our chat. I hope they're okay with me sharing it. They were asking for help. On the last stream I did on Arweave, got a lot of people to start thinking about migrating off of IPFS and coming over to Arweave. Violetta is a well-known on-chain musician that has shipped mostly in the Ethereum ecosystem, and they have been paying a recurring cost on IPFS storage. And so I looked at their contracts, and how their tokens are set up is they have a token URI method, normal for an ERC-721, which returns right now an IPFS hash followed by a token ID. And so she can update it on her contract by calling the set base URI method, and she can put in a base URI, and then all the token IDs are going to get generated as /1, /2, / whatever the token ID is. And so what we need to do if she wants to migrate is we need to somehow upload it so that we get a base directory, and then the / aligns with, she'll upload that directory of each file is 1.json, 2.json through all the token IDs. And she wants just an easy, hopefully no code way to be able to upload one file with all those JSON and then just call this set base URI method. That way she can tell her IPFS provider, I'm done paying you. She paid one time to host on the permaweb, and all of her metadata is good forever. What would you recommend for someone like her, a musician who wants to migrate off of IPFS, has a base URI, and what tool would you recommend for them to be able to upload to get a base URI with token ID path on Arweave?
Yeah, great question. Okay, so Steven C, by the way, is the other DevRel for the team that I work on RIO. So he's had some great answers and stuff, by the way. And honestly, like, he's been part of the team longer than I have. He knows so many intricacies. I wish I could have gotten him on the stream with me on time, but it was kind of a last minute kind of thing. But he and I, you know what I think is, maybe he and I can sit down and have a conversation about this. The idea would be that I could see a method in my mind where you could connect your wallet and almost have like a drag and drop experience on an Arweave app that will allow you to just kind of drag and drop your base URI, or somehow be able to just migrate all of your assets from IPFS over to Arweave and be able to pay that transaction somehow. I'm kind of thinking that's the answer. I'll sit with him and see what we can come up with, and I'll get back to you. I'm thinking we can have something working by next week for anybody that wants to migrate from IPFS. I'm thinking that's that method it's very realistic, and so I want to dive into some of the intricacies on how we can do that. I'm already thinking of how the code will work, but I don't think we have exactly how how that would work in a low code, no code way yet, but getting that implemented and executed and running live it wouldn't take us more than 7 days, in my opinion. I don't think so.
It's possible. We don't have a
Very possible
yet, but any dev that's watching this, there's an opportunity to build that tool because
there is.
Actually,
you know what? I'm going to mention this right now as we're saying this. We have a hackathon that's coming up for ETH Denver. I'm not sure if there's going to be like an online component, but if you are at ETH Denver, we do have a hackathon that's running at ETH Denver. And you know what? I love this. I'm going to throw up a bounty for it. I'll go ahead and throw up a bounty. If any developers are listening to this and want to come up with a way to easily low code, no code, drag and drop, migrate IPFS, assets and things like that over to Arweave, I'm gonna set up a bounty for that. I'm sure Phil, our founder, is either like, yeah, this is a great idea, or he's like, Patrick, shut the one or the other. But I got it. We're gonna set up a bounty.
Okay, so we got Violetta handled. Let's talk through some of these. Are you able to see all these comments, or do you not see them?
I can see them now. I can see them now. Yeah.
So next one, we didn't talk about this. Anything you want to highlight on this comment from Steven? Turbo uploads use optimistic caching, so data is available almost instantly, and their services will try any failed uploads to ensure data makes it on chain.
Let's see. Turbo uploads are optimal. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, he's hit the nail on the head. We try to make sure that we have optimistic uploads, and the biggest thing is, like, you probably, if you go through the RIO website, like, one of the things is like we hate 404s. We're trying to kill 404s, and that happens with. It's sad to see how many massive and very lucrative projects, NFT projects, have like broken images. Right. It's pretty sad to see that, and so that's been one of the big inspirations for Arweave. To some extent, why Arweave was so widely used in like 2021 till now for NFT projects is that you have the comfort and the guarantee that your images aren't just going to suddenly disappear.
It won't show on gateways that are not subscribed to the optimistic cache. It's sounding like stuff doesn't actually get on chain for 15 to 30 minutes. So what is happening is the internal Arweave team is doing some caching stuff so that the image is instantly available until that 15 to 30 passes. Am I understanding the architecture right of uploads?
Yes. Yeah. So you got it. Yeah. So like you have like this temporary cache that's happening specifically, happens with the RIO team. And then as soon as that caching is completed, you get you get a permanent hash, and that permanent hash is what's made available in perpetuity. So like if I were to use that hash that I got for that profile image, that's a temporary hash because we saw that yellow dot, but then that hash will change later on.
I installed Cursor. Steven's using Cursor now, so the streams are helping more devs use Cursor. I use Cursor. I highly recommend. Steven, you mentioned it slightly, but how has your coding changed as a result of using Cursor as opposed to VS Code and other IDEs?
Oh, so for me, man, I can develop things so much faster. And as a DevRel, I want to be able to get something, test it out real quick, see if it works. Another thing that is very, very important in the developer relations world is that I want to make sure that the AI itself can review the documentation because everybody's starting to use Cursor now. And so I want to make sure that our docs are Cursor friendly. And so, it's super duper important. And for those that don't know the feature, and I'm sure some of you have already seen it before, but I'm just going to use this really fast, is like if I want to use documentation, let's say the RIO documentation here. So I'm going to type in docs RIO. We can see my screen right now.
I can see your browser right now.
Cool. Okay, and I want to make sure that can you see Cursor now?
I am not seeing Cursor right now. I'm still seeing RIO.
Okay. All right. Hold on. Let me fix that real fast. I quickly press that button too fast, but entire screen. Here we go. Okay, we can see the cursor now.
Can see your cursor now.
Cool. All right. So going back to the docs. If I have any docs page whatsoever here, Okay. I want to be able to copy the getting started page. That's where I want to always start with it when I do this. I copy the URL. And then if I type in at docs, okay, I click on docs and I want to look at any docs I've already. Okay, so in this case, the RIO docs is not in here. So I can click add and then I can paste this. And this is going to index or try to index the entire set of documentation. Okay, I hit enter. That's going to say the RIO SDK, hit confirm. And then that's going to try to index all of the documentation for me. So now if I just type in r.io, it's going to reference the documentation for me. So if I want to use RIO SDK, I can use that in the prompt. So that's a really, really important feature for Cursor. For anybody using for Cursor, that's a really cool feature to use, just so everybody knows.
I imagine that software companies would start optimizing their docs to be imported into Cursor. You're the first person I've heard who is actually leaning into that. What is a way that you have changed writing your docs to make it easier for Cursor to import them?
So I'm actually building out a new docs framework myself, that me and some other DevRels from other ecosystems. We're actively building out a framework where you will actually have your docs URL, and then you will actually have a docs URL specifically for AI import. And what that does is it's going to actually increase token utilization, so AI token utilization to docs context, and improve that ratio. Because right now, depending on how well your docs are written and how they're designed or anything like that, you're probably getting about 40 to 80% efficiency in documentation context to token the token utilization, AI token utilization. But I think we can get it up to 100%. You need to strip all of the, like, honestly, the design features, all the visuals and stuff like that. Strip all of that and really develop a lot of context, because users, you want to make sure you don't lose their attention by creating too much context. But then some of that context is necessary for the AI to understand what we're building and why we're building that way. So in the AI link, you're going to have more context, less visualization, so that you increase the context for the AI to understand what it's doing and why it's doing it. Telling the why to the AI really, really helps it understand. While for user docs, there's always a layer of assumption that we know why you're there. So we remove a lot of context sometimes, and to keep you from having too much context to read through. But for AI, it's important to have that stuff, and so we are developing a framework that allows you to import docs and have a better docs context ratio to token utilization.
First comment from Dylan Shade today. Which deploy script was that? This might have been answered with Steven's follow-up comment where he linked your starter kit, Zero to Arweave starter kit. Do you think that answers Dylan's question, or is there a more specific answer we want to give?
Yeah, man. Just head over to that link, and then there's a folder called scripts. I have a script for setting your RNS record. I have a script for the Git records, which Git records is just checks that if your deployment hash is now associated to your RNS address. I have the Get primary names script just to test if your primary name is actually properly associated to your wallet address, and then the deploy script. So you have like a turbo.js and the deploy script. That deploy script runs the turbo.js and runs your actual deployment process. So yes, all the scripts in there. You can look at all those different scripts. All those different scripts are built in there, and you could test them out right out of the box.
Steven came back when you mentioned inviting him. It sounds like he's had snow anyway, so it's working out.
He's got some Starlink woes right now with the snow covering his Starlink.
Dylan in again. Any connections calls to backends not on Arweave will be susceptible to 404s. Maybe need a warning or something. it seems like you and him have a relationship, and I've appreciated seeing the polarity of like, you are giving me docs and he kind of comes in and he's like, yeah, but on the edges, you didn't think about this. And so it's a very anti-fragile community. Do you have any reflections on this thought from, I don't understand the context all the way.
Yeah, no, this is a great like mentioning, and yes, so like as I continue to develop this starter kit, I am trying to develop for more like edge cases. So it covers about 90% right now, and but this is a great mentioning because eventually I do want to build in some AO support features in there, and you are going to need to make sure you cover those edge cases on deployments with AO as an operating backend. And so like later on, I'll probably put together a, based off, I'll fork my own starter kit and I'll create like a, what's it called? Like a quiz app where like, answering questions and everything, and all the answers and stuff are stored and saved on AO, and those interactions and everything work. But there is a situation where in certain edge cases, you are susceptible to 404s depending on how you run your deployments or how you manage your manifest JSON. Now, if you're not managing your manifest.json well, then you are going to have some 404 issues at some points, but it's already built into that script where it manages the manifest really well. So you really shouldn't have 404 errors at all at this point right now. But again, there are edge cases that you do have to think of. How the deployment script is covering right now covers roughly about 90+% of the possible edge cases and anything. So yeah, it shouldn't be an issue.
This was a question I had. I didn't know how to phrase it. Can you clarify what the difference is between R.io and Arweave?
Yeah, it's a great question. We look at RIO as very much as like the gateway to Arweave. Arweave is very much of like your permanent storage data chain, while RIO is like the gateway. Now, there is a whole context of what I can go through on like how gateways work and everything. You can actually become a gateway provider. You can, and when you become a gateway provider, you can earn, tokens and everything being a gateway provider. And so the more GPU and the more GPU you can provide in your gateway, the more you can earn. And so like there's a list of gateways and there's tutorials on how to become gateways and everything. But RIO is very much of like that gateway. You can look at RIO again, because of the gateways and everything, we're looking at gateways being like the domain names. You're talking about the RNS addresses and everything as well. And then the becoming gateway provider allows you to provide GPU. So like you have that caching experience that happens in the gateway, not on Arweave itself.
Be careful with AI tools. Def increases speed, but can easy to become complacent and atrophy. Any reflections on this?
So I love this. You depending on how you start your experience, how you start the development process is really, really important to make sure that you don't end up with like, atrophy, hallucinations or anything like that. I'll do a really quick, like how I get started kind of thing is, oh, did I
We got
make sure
it.
I'm
I see
sharing?
your browser.
Here we go. One sec. Go to entire screen. I hit window that time. Here we go. All right. So one of the things I do right away is, have you ever used dot cursor rules?
Yep, I'm using it way more now.
Okay, yeah. Love it. Okay, so
Yep.
dot cursor rules. Okay, and how I typically, do this. By the way, I already have this inside of the git ignore, so you don't push it to your repo if you don't want to. And but with dot cursor rules, you can actually go to a URL that is cursor.directory. And in cursor.directory, you have basically all these templates of dot cursor rules. Okay. So in this case, we have a Vite React app. Okay. And I'm going to click on the Vite React app. And is it routing for me? It seems to not be routing for me, but
results.
Yeah, weird. Here, oh, sorry. It's Vite.
18 results. Nice.
Okay, here we go. Now let's jump down to I think this is where the Vite list is here. There's like Tailwind CSS. Well, let's just grab something from like Tailwind CSS because I'm gonna show you the steps of what I usually use.
Mm-hmm.
So I go here, copy this, and then I'll go to like Claude, and or actually, you know, I'll just use the Claude app here because I have the Claude app here. There we go. Oh, that's not pulling up for me. Lovely. Here, go to ChatGPT. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to say this is a .cursor rules file, but I want to change it to be more proficient with Arweave, the Arweave wallet kit, and the R.io SDK, and the Turbo SDK. Rewrite it for me to improve its efficiencies. Okay, and then I'll just put this here, paste this, and then I'll just have it rewrite the actual cursor file for me, .cursor rules for me, and then I will just copy and paste this into the cursor file so that it's more proficient for the specific project that I'm working on. This is super important to start with, because without starting with this, you're going to end up with like hallucinations and things like that. And so another thing to make sure that you're consistently staying on track with your project is you want to build out a roadmap. So you'll actually see a roadmap here in the project. So I go to roadmap and see this checklist. This checklist is based on me ideating on exactly how I want to build this project and how I want to build the starter kit and what features I want to include in this starter kit. And then I actually use the roadmap in here. So as I continue development, I'll say, let's update the roadmap with what we've completed so far. And then I'll just type in roadmap and, you know, and hit enter there. And then, or I'll say something like, okay, what steps on the roadmap should we look to complete next, and allow the AI itself to understand what it's completed so far and what steps it should take next. And so let's see, okay, like this is already done, so I can actually hit copy here and then go to the .cursor rules, paste my cursor rules in here, and it's good to go. It's going to keep me from like having hallucinations issues and stuff like that. A couple of things obviously I didn't include there, but I should have, because it has like Alpine JS and stuff. I should have included that we're using a Vite project and things like that. But that's just kind of a really quick way of like understanding, you know, how to set up a cursor rules file and keep it from hallucinating, because it's always going to reference cursor rules.
Copy. So get a cursor rules in there.
Questions?
Get a roadmap in there.
Mm-hmm.
You're off to the races with setting up a new project.
Yeah, 100%. That's really going to be able to help you out from having hallucination issues.
After that, Dylan followed up and said, "Def a fan of Cursor and Windsurf, though. I agree, both are great options. I recommend Cursor as top tier. Windsurf for me is great for a full free option." Anything you want to add on there? Keep going.
Yeah, I've been playing with a few of them. I'm currently dabbling with this one called lovable.dev, I think it is. And it's really, really interesting. Talking about models, by the way, what models should you code with? Because you can obviously adjust your models. For me, when it comes to brainstorming or coming up with more details on your roadmap or something like that, O3 Mini on the way, all the way. And you want to be able to make sure that you're using something that can do very complex reasoning. But then, you know, when it comes to the coding experience, 3.5 Sonnet is the, you know, Claude Sonnet is still the pinnacle at this moment. I have played with DeepSeek R1. a little bit. And I would say that's better for like the brainstorming experience and everything at this moment right now than it is to have that faster coding experience and more accurate coding experience with 3.5. I found that when I was trying to use R1, that I think R1 for some reason would not reference the cursor rules file. That's just my experience. And so, like for me, again, for deep ideation, you can use R1 or O3, and then and for the actual coding experience, stick to 3.5 Sonnet.
Steven up again. The hash does not change between optimistic and permanent.
Okay, so yeah, don't have to worry about that. Sweet. Thank you, Steven. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I really appreciate you, Steven. You've been helping us a lot. Me and both all my live streams on Arweave. Thank you for tuning in. We got another
Steven's based.
He said, never seen the roadmap idea. So it looks like you taught me it as well just now. So that roadmap idea is great.
Make sure it's a checkbox. That's something, as you write that out, make sure it's like a checklist so that it understands, okay, we've already completed these things. These things are not completed. That keeps you from hallucinating along the way. That's really, really a solid approach that I kind of accidentally came up with it in the process. I don't think I've seen anybody else using it, but I really like it.
Important message from Kempster. We have a GM.
Yeah, that's our head of ecosystem. Really great guy. Also, one of the major founders and core members of Developer DAO. He's been, honestly, I think he's really helped shape a lot of the Web3 experience for developers for years now. So really great guy.
Last question. Thank you to everybody who commented from Dylan Shade. I don't think it's a question, just talking about DeepSeek R1. Sounds like he aligns with your architecture.
Yeah. Same thing, yeah. R1, I'm hearing that a lot of people have better experiences with R1. I think I need to improve my prompting specifically for R1 to see if I can get better results than O3. But I think they're about matching results right now. But I have heard, I need to watch a couple of tutorials and things, and maybe I could probably improve that. Anybody that's interested in just like a chat experience, this is totally different ecosystem and stuff. But if anybody has used New OS, which comes from the New Forum, they're a decentralized platform that actually runs models for you, and you can actually use multiple models in a single chat. Which is really, really cool experience. I literally think it's, let me just double check, newos.computer. Yeah, newos.computer. And I'll share my screen real fast. This is a really great tooling that just came out recently. And let's see here. Let me go. Here we are. Yep. And it's newos.computer. And you can get started. And when you get started, you can actually pull up chat windows that have like multiple. Oh wow, they added. Oh, okay, good. The synchronization actually fairly fast. And but you can have multiple models and stuff like that. And what's interesting is it has like an agent marketplace where they have different agents that are specifically trained to do specific tasks. They have a local installation that you can do, but if I can go in here and I can actually click on these different chats. So like some of Madhvi actually works for the New Forum team, but she developed like an AI model of herself that I can chat with her. And so like, and it might have actually like multiple models in here. I don't, let's see. No, yeah, this one is just her. Okay. And so like I could chat with her. I can develop a model for myself, or you can build a chat that has models, multiple models for you. So yeah, really, really cool stuff. If you want to have something that allows you to, let's say, ideate using R1 and then code with Sonnet, they're actually developing like an API so that you can actually import this API into Cursor, and then you can use multiple models within a single chat. Because the one thing that I found that is a downside to Cursor, when you switch models, it loses context of the conversation. Yep. When you switch models. But if you were to use an API from like New OS, which is coming out really, really soon, you won't lose context of the conversation, which is really cool. Plus, I think it's like $8 a month. I think that's what they're going to be charging is $8 a month for multiple models across multiple platforms. So instead of having to pay $20 for Claude, $20 for OpenAI, $20 for all these other ones, you can just pay $8 and you'll have access to multiple models. Really cool. Kind of shilling on a completely different ecosystem project, but I really enjoy it, and it's a good team over there.
This is our wrapping up point. I think one of the things I really learned from this is this has been an hour and 40 minutes of a stream, but really if you zoom in on 10 minutes, I think from 45 minutes to 55 minutes, that's all the time it took to publish an app onto Arweave. Everything else has just been Patrick doing a great job showing me around the ecosystem, giving me help with other dev tools, showing us new tools. So if you think it took us an hour and 40 minutes to build on Arweave, it did not. You'll need to zoom in on 10 minutes where we actually deployed on Arweave, and then the rest of this is helpful dev tools. As we wrap up, do you have any closing thoughts for devs that are watching this or musicians who are now becoming devs using Cursor? Any last minute thoughts for anybody building on Arweave as like a signing off for your experience building on Arweave?
First, for the musicians and music people and stuff like that that are kind of like, new to the coding experience, guys, don't be afraid, jump in, give it a shot, try things, break shit. That's exactly what devs do. And we're breaking shit constantly. And so don't lose heart. The biggest thing that I think a lot of this isn't just, new coders, this is seniors and stuff as well. Don't waste time trying to fix something on your own if you're constantly hitting a wall. Reach out. That's what DevRels are for. Me, Steven C. Dude, he's awesome about this stuff. Steven C. Just look for DevRels in the ecosystem that you're trying to build in, and reach out to them. They're ridiculously helpful. All of us, 90% of us, I'm sure, if you reach out with a coding problem to them, they will happily send you a meeting link and walk you through the process and everything. You'll get a one-on-one with some of the best people in the ecosystem. Hell, one of the most popular DevRels in the ecosystem is Natter Dabbit. Many of us probably heard of. And there have been multiple times I've seen him just reach out and just hop on calls with brand new devs and stuff and just teach them how to, teach them the ropes. So don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help when you're running into issues. We're not a bunch of pompous assholes and stuff like that are saying, oh, you don't know how to code or anything. No, dude, we love to help new developers, senior developers, doesn't matter. Always be willing to reach out and help, guys. And so that's, for me, that's a big one. Take the time to ask for help so that you don't hit those walls of frustration. And it's important for us. By reaching out to us, it helps us understand, okay, I can see how you ran into this problem. We need to fix our documentation for that, or we need to set up a new tutorial for that, or something like that. So by reaching out to us, you're really helping us just as much as you're helping yourself. And so take the time to reach out